Hello, I'm Barry Hilton, one of the Business Development Managers for Fera, and I'm going to show you today how to use HorizonScan and the benefits that it can offer your company. HorizonScan is a big database of all food safety notification recall data from across the globe and putting together into one easy to use format. People ask, where does all the data come from HorizonScan? So if we click on the data sources, so you can see on the left-hand side a map of the world, all in red. These are all the countries that have official notifications. And we go into each of these sites every day and pull the information from that to put it into the database. So as I scroll down the screen, you can see a number of different countries there. There's about 63 in total. And as well as all Europe, we're covering things like the USA, China, Japan, Canada, a whole range of other countries. So we cover about 63 countries from there, and those are all sites that go into the database. The map on the right-hand side shows a lot more red. That's including secondary sourcing. So a country, for example, like Botswana, that doesn't have an official site, if they export something to Japan that does, they find an issue, they put it into their database, and over time we will build up data for those countries as well. So we've got data going back to 1999, and so that helps us to build up that overall picture. The only countries that we don't have in the database are these at the bottom here, and at the moment not many people are looking at sourcing from any of these countries here. So it does give you a very good global coverage. So when you first log on to HorizonScan, this is the home page that it shows you, and you can see here the 6 latest highlights. These are news-related items that are in the system, not necessarily from official sources, but from reputable news sources. So the first one you can see here is a withdrawal of Linuron across the EU. It's highlighted as red, so we believe that could be a risk to people. So if you click on the read, it will take you to the official page where that came from. And that is an EU regulation change. So this gives you the details of that regulation relating to that website. This is the same for each of these news-related items. You'll see that there is a red, amber, green code. Something that green is for information predominantly only. Something that's yellow is something that you may want to take action on, and something in red is something that may be a concern for you and something that you may need to action. On each of these, you can scroll down and see the whole page, and you can click on the read and it will give you more information. So for example, clicking on the next one, this would go to Food Safety News because that's the page where the information came from. So that's the latest 6 highlights. All highlights then gives you all the news related items for the last 2 months. So this gives you exactly the same information but for the last 2 months, and you can see here that all these different news related items. If we're interested in this one, vet drugs from Brazilian corned beef, again click on that. That's come from Food Quality News, and I can read the article if that was of interest to me. Sometimes by looking at the news related items, you may get different websites giving you information, and this might help to consolidate it all into one place so you don't have to keep getting it from different sources. The final tab on here is recently added issues. So this is where we've added all the food safety notifications in the last 48 hours. And the best way to look for it is under the commodity, click on the double arrow, and it will sort it into alphabetical order. So I can now look through these commodities here and see any that are related to myself or interested to the company, and I can see what they are. It will give me what the commodity is, the actual commodity grouping where it came from, the date that it was released and the date that it was added, the country of origin, the country that notified it, the reason for the notification, and the actual hazard. So it will put it into a section, and then the type of control. So if I wanted to know more about this particular one, I can click on the read, and that would take me to the official page. So that was from the FDA, and I can read that to find out more information about it. So the way that people would normally use the system is you would use the search function on the left-hand side. So, for example, if I was interested in looking at fish, I would start typing fish. It will then give me options here. So I'm interested in fish, fresh and frozen. Click on that and then click on the search bar. That will then pull up the whole history or the whole details then within the database of fish. So we can see two tables here. The first one gives us the number of report by country of origin. It puts it into a top 5. You'll see at the moment it's for all data. So this could have data going back to 1999, and it gives the countries with the most notifications as a top 5. You see on this particular instance, Spain is the top country, then followed by Vietnam and then China. And then it also on this side you've got the hazard. So again, put it into a top 5. So you see that mercury has got the most notifications, then followed by import refusal, then by nematode parasites. However, this is all data. I may not be interested in all the data. I may only want to look for the last 12 months, for example. I'd click on the last 12 months, click on go, and that will change the data then just for the last 12 months. You see that Spain's still the country with the most notifications, followed by China and then Vietnam. But actually now where mercury was the most reported hazard, you've now got import refusal as the ones with the most issues. If I wanted to know more about any of these, I can click on the actual tab. Before I do that, you'll see every time I hover over on the bar chart, in the top corner here, it'll give me a count. So I can see that from import refusal, there's 309, and from Spain, there's 83 reports in there. If I wanted to find out more about these import refusals, click on the tab, it will open up another page, and that will give me then all the details of all the other import refusals. Whenever you do that, it always gives you the first 1 to 25 for the speed. There's actually 1 of 25 of 309 results here. So if I want to see all of them, I'd click on all here. This gives you all the details then for all 309 results. If I wanted to do a more in detail search, so I wanted just to search for shark, I can copy and paste all these and put these then into Excel. So it does allow you that functionality. We'll just go back to the main page again now. To get back to the main bit for fish, fresh and frozen, I'd click on this tab here. That takes me back to the main page. Underneath then the tabs of country of origin and hazard, you've also got change in number of reports by country over time, and you've also got change of hazard over time. This allows you to look at trends for any specific area. So you can see here that most things have fairly consistent over time. However, import refusal has been quite low, and then all of a sudden in the last few years it's spiked up. So this is showing a big change in the hazard in that particular area. On the left hand side here, you've got different tabs that you can click on that gives you more information about this. So main highlights. If I click on the main highlights, it will give me the news related items related to that commodity. So you see here that there's some research been done on dangerous tapeworms and Alaskan salmon, and then there's some details here about cracking down on seafood fraud. Again, each of these, click on those and it will give you more information about that. The next one down gives you the risk. Clicking on the risk will then put the details of the risk for each of those specific areas for fish, and it gives you a breakdown of more in-depth detail. So, for example, on the pesticides, there's 4 details. It will give me the actual active that has been found and the country of origin where that came from. It'll also tell me how frequently that was found. So something with an analytical priority of high, as well as MRL exceedance has been found in the last 3 years. So where this can be useful is a laboratory would do your multi-residue screen. You can check with the laboratory that they're covering these specific actives within that multi-residue screen. If they're not, then you may be missing those specific actives, and therefore you might be missing the areas that could be concerning. Back to the risk, if I wanted to find out more about the veterinary drugs that were in fish, click on that. That will give me the details then of the actual drugs that were found, again from the country, and something here which is high is where there's been an issue within the last 12 months. So again, that gives you the details there to make sure that you're testing for the right drug and from the right country. The next one down gives you emerging issues. Now, an emerging issue is something that we've seen in the last 30 days, but we've not previously seen before in HorizonScan. And an emerging issue is a unique combination of a contaminant within a commodity from a specific country. So there are 4 in this particular instance. So the first one is methylene blue in live eels that's been found. It was notified by Japan from China. So we haven't seen this before. The next one down is undeclared mustard in a salmon or marinated trout from Canada. And so these are things that we haven't seen before, and it may be something that you may want to look at in more detail with your supply chain. The next one down is increasing issues. So we monitor the annual averages of everything within the database, and then we can also see when things have increased over that time. So you'll see in the top one here, we've normally seen this, a warning letter from the USA, 0.4 times in a year. In the last 12 months, it's gone up 16 times. So there's a 40 times increase in that over standard. So that may be something that you need to look at in more detail. And that gives you I'll click on the highest first. This would give me all the details going into descending order. So that allows me to look at things that are increasing over standard. And again, it might give you a trend or something that you need to look at. Anybody who's got BRC, under version 7, you've got to do a vulnerability assessment. So under vulnerability issues, this allows you to look at data that can help you within your vulnerability assessment. So under fresh and frozen for vulnerability issues, we've got 208 results. If I click on all, and then highlight the hazard into alphabetical order, what you can now see is for each of these hazards sections, it will give me specific information that I can then use as part of my vulnerability assessment. So under adulteration and substitution as a sector, it will show me things that are happening. So in this top one, there's more fat and less protein. In some of the others, you may have a higher meat content or a lower meat content than declared. So that is part of data that you can put into your vulnerability assessment under adulteration substitution. So scrolling down, it will give me more information then in terms of decomposition and altered organolepsis. So that's another area that I can use in there. Expiry date changes. These are things that have been happening 2009, 2015, 2017. Expiry date changes. I need to make sure that I've got something in place to cover that, and then that doesn't happen. Fraudulent documentation, again, multiple dates, so it's not just something that's happened recently, it's been going on for a number of years, so you may want something in your vulnerability assessment that covers fraudulent documentation. Scrolling down even further, a lot further, we've then got other processing issues, produced without inspection and unapproved premises. And the last one is unauthorised or unsuitable transport. So these are all specific areas, so all these may be able to get lumped together as one line, but it also, all those are information that can be used as part of that vulnerability assessment for BRC, and you can do that for each of the different commodities. As well as just from individual commodities, you'll see that you've got commodity grouping. So if I wanted to know more about the whole group, I can click on that and it will give me more details about the whole of the seafood sector. The final tab under this section is a supplier check. Clicking on the supplier check, I can then add in a country of origin if it was of interest or a specific supplier name. But in this instance, I will just search in general. With 2,271 results in here of supplier names, clicking all will link all of those. And then clicking on the company into alphabetical order, I can then scroll down and find out if I've got a company within there that we've been doing dealings with, or I may want to do dealings with. So, as an example, this company here, they've had some details from, or some issues since March 2015 and in June 2015. So, slightly different. Some were on metals, some were on adulteration substitution. So, they've actually come from different countries of origin, but I may want to, if I want to deal with this company, I may want to ask, what have they done to minimise the risk of this sort of thing happening again? It happened in 2015. What have you done? What process have you put in place to minimise that happening in future? That might give me confidence that actually, yes, they did have an issue, but going forward, they've got things in place that will mean that won't happen again. I can use it as part of a technical brief. I can also use it as part of a purchasing decision. So purchasers looking for new suppliers could look at this tool and have a look at what issues those suppliers potentially have had and use that as part of the negotiation process when they're discussing with a supplier about supply for them. So that gives you all the details on that specific issue. I can also search for it in a slightly different way. I've shown you about the commodity, I've shown you about the product grouping. So rather than just typing from a commodity, I could do a select from a commodity grouping here. Clicking on this area would give me a commodity grouping and all the individual commodities underneath. You've also got an advanced text search area here. This allows you to search for the data in a slightly different way. If I wanted to look at everything to do with something with a label in it, I can click on all data, type in label in the search box, and then search. This will then pull up all the details in the system that have got label. So there's 1,500, or still 1,500 results with label in there. I can also use it, if I wanted to look at anything in there, one of the tricks you can use is to type in A and then capital and an E. That will look for everything in the database, so all data. I want to look then for a specific hazard. So if I wanted to look for pesticide residues, for example, in India, click on that. I've got all data and search. That will then pull up all the pesticide details just from India. So there's 761 results. Click on all, and that will pull up all 761 results to do with pesticides from India. So that allows you to look at different things within the database. The top of along the search function, you've also got increase in issues. This is a search for increase in issues regardless of commodity. So whereas the other screen you're looking based on a commodity grouping, this is a relevant, it will be independent of commodity. So there are 255 results, then click on all. And then put the deviation with the hyphen to the top. So this big one here, 0.1 we normally see. We've seen 73 in the last 12 months. So these are food supplements from Australia with import refusal. Clicking on the read will give me more information. Again, it's something that I may want to look at because it's causing more and more of a problem. Then give me all the details then of what all those import refusals are, and I can click on details for more here. The other area at the top is a supplier check. Clicking on supplier check again would give you a search for any supplier regardless of commodity. One thing I would have to do on here is to put in a country. So if I was to look for China, for example, and search, this would give me all the suppliers within the database that are exporting from China. So nearly 3,000 results there, all from China. Again, I'd have to click on all to get all of those, and I could do a search for all of those. One of the areas that we're interested in is feedback from our customers. So one of the areas we've got under the contact us form is adding in further requests for either development or further functionality. So if you could type your details in here, click on the tab here and type in what areas that you'd be interested in developing further. That would be a useful addition for us, and that could go as part of our development portfolio. The HorizonScan system is worked off from a username. So your username is your email address. One of the advantages of that is you've got an email address and a password when you log on. Because you've got an email address, you can then set your preferences, and this will help you to be alerted by email. So when you click on preferences, under general settings, you can either get an email every day or once a week, or you don't need to have them. So when you set them up, you can either set it for daily or weekly. So at the moment we set it daily. You then choose the commodities of interest. For all new users, everything is selected and you deselect ones that you don't want. If I wasn't interested in oranges, I'd click on oranges and it would take that one off. You've got all the countries selected and you've got all hazards selected. Again, if you don't want those, you take those off. Select your daily or weekly, update your settings, and then anytime any of those commodities that you have selected within the database gets updated within the database, either once a day or once a week, you will get an update with what those issues have been added to the database. A very useful function. It means that you don't have to log on to the database each time, but you would get an email, and people like to keep aware of what's going on. That's a very quick overview of HorizonScan, how it can work. Hope you found that useful. For more information, you can go to our website, www.fera.co.uk. Alternatively, you can email us at horizonscan@fera.co.uk, and one of the team will then get back to you and answer any queries that you may have. I hope you found that useful, and thank you for your time.